Is that, and this leads us to a controversial issue, but I don't shy away from controversy, as you all know, is that the first time that the Prophet's birthday was celebrated as a public event, i.e. the Mawlid un-Nabi or the Milad un-Nabi as we call it, the first time that it was celebrated, the authorities who celebrated it chose the 12th of Rabi' al-Awwal. And because they chose the 12th of Rabi' al-Awwal, now that's it. It just spread like wildfire. The day and the event and the custom. Now I have written a detailed article about the history of the Mawlid and who started it and how did it become popular, and you can refer to it on Muslim Matter. It is called A History of the Mawlid by myself. You can just Google it and you'll find it 3 parts. And just to summarize, the Mawlid or the Milad un-Nabi, the first recorded instance that we have of anybody celebrating Milad un-Nabi is around 517 Hijrah. 517 Hijrah, i.e. the 6th century of Islam. So for 500 years, the concept of celebrating the birthday of the Prophet is simply unknown to the Muslims. They cannot, because celebrating birthdays is not a custom that comes from Islam or from, I'm not saying it's haram by them, I'm saying it's not something that the Arabs would do. They wouldn't record birthdays to celebrate them in the first place, right? Many of you, I know my own grandmother had no idea when she was born. They didn't record these things. It was not something of significance to them. The day and the month and the year that you were born. This is a Western concept that is now modern. Everybody records it. But it was not something that, if you even ask your own grandparents, many of them would not know. You know, it's not something that was recorded. And so, the concept of celebrating it is a very late addition. And the first group that celebrated it were the Fatimids of Egypt. And the Fatimids are a dynasty that are not of Sunni theology. They are an extreme Shi'i dynasty. The Fatimids are the ancestors of, in today's time, the Aga Khanis and the Buhra, the Ismailis. The Fatimids are the ancestors of these groups, the extreme Shia groups. And for a number of years they ruled over Egypt. The Fatimid dynasty ruled over Egypt. And they instituted over 30-40 festivals. And of course there's a reason why rulers have festivals. Why do people have festivals? What does it do? Distracting and economy. People come and buy and sell. Popularity of whatever is called a nation state in our times, or in their times the ruling family, right? So there's a reason why the ruling class want to have public festivals. There's a philosophy behind it. And the Fatimids had over 30 or 40 public festivals throughout the year. Every few weeks there was a major event and festival. And they celebrated Ghadir Khum, they celebrated 10th of Muharram. These are all Shia festivals. They celebrated the birth of this Imam, the death of that Imam. And of those celebrations, it is said, they celebrated the birthday of the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ. This is the first time in Islamic history that we come across the celebration of the birthday of the Prophet ﷺ. As I said, 517 Hijrah, 517. And the people who are doing it are these Fatimids. And as we said, there's clearly a motive for them to do it. When it was done in Fatimid Egypt, then 150 years later, some Sunni governors thought this was a good idea, and they imported this particular festival. And because it was done in Egypt on the 12th of Rabi' al-Awwal, Egypt at that time was a Fatimid state, they imported it to Mosul, which is outside of Baghdad. It's a place in Iraq. The first Sunni governor, he was not a Khalifa, the first Sunni governor who celebrated the Mawlid, celebrated it around 670 or so Hijrah. So for 670 years this was unknown in the Muslim world, to celebrate the birthday of the Prophet. And this celebration was done once again on the 12th, and it became a very luxurious festival. And various governors and rulers would then compete with each other who could have the bigger festival and the grander festival. Free meat and free bread and free, gifts were given out, and people, so it became literally a national festival. And as I said, there are reasons why rulers want to do this, and so they began to compete with one another in order to attract the trade, the commerce. Just like now, why do governments want the Olympics to happen in their country? Right? Why do governments want the World Cup to come to their country? There's reasons. We need to be a little bit more reading in here. And so the governors wanted these festivals to become the biggest, so each one wants theirs to be bigger and bigger. And of course it's the birthday of the Prophet, who's ever going to say anything about that? And so slowly but surely, from 660 AH, it began to spread in Sunni lands. Initially, some scholars opposed it. Some scholars, said, well, if you do it with these conditions, it's okay. After a while, under public pressure, just the floodgates opened, and it became a very, very common festival. And you all know my opinion on this, is that the way to celebrate the birthday of the Prophet ﷺ, if you really wanted to celebrate it, is to fast on Mondays. Because that's what he would do. If you really want to celebrate his birthday, then you should fast every Monday. Because when he was asked, why do you fast on Monday? He said, because I was born on a Monday. So to take one day of the year and do events and whatnot, I'm not going to be harsh here, but let me just say, it's a really easy cop-out to show that you're loving the Prophet ﷺ, if you do something one day. Real love is to be dedicated throughout the year, right? Real love is to show that love every single day, and not just one day of the year by giving some money and going to a festival.